I just wanted to get a quick topic out before I continue with the Q&As. Transformers cartoons like to show you the war, but Cybertronians were people with jobs and lives before they all ended up as soldiers. Looking at Transformers Prime and its related books, what do we know about the pre-war lives of the cast? I have some answers, but not all. For once we know for certain, I will say confirmed. For those without answers, I will give my best speculation. Obvious ones first. Megatron. You may just say gladiator, but that is not entirely accurate. Megatron was a nameless slave who worked in mines and factories in Kaon. He was designated as D-16, then he named himself after the prime Megatronus. Gladiator was not a caste put upon anyone, but something to sign up for. Megatron fought in them to gather followers and to make his voice heard at last. Megatron was around to fight in the war against the Quintesson invaders because he was created in the Age of Wrath. Optimus. Optimus as Orion Pax was a very timid bot for a long time. He's an old bot, but he worked a gentle job as someone who organized information. He recorded history and stored files all his life, not having much experience outside this or dreams to do more. So despite his age, he was mentally young and vulnerable. He worked in the Iacon Hall of Records under Alpha Trion, and the term librarian described him well. During the Age of Rust, just before the war, he organized news recordings, and he heard Megatron talking and grew interested in him. Soundwave. During Quintesson rule, Sentinel was elected as Prime and Soundwave was made one of the 13 members of his council. Alita 1 was also a member. Counselor Soundwave was always a spy, gathering information about their alien rulers. Soundwave was an influential bot on Cybertron for a long time, a leader who oversaw the building of space bridges and the colonization of other planets. But when the Rust Plague hit and Cybertron closed its space bridges, society collapsed. Soundwave did all that he could to urge the council to help the suffering population, but no one had the inclination to help when they were all unaffected in their high positions. Disgusted, Soundwave decided that actions spoke louder than words. He left the council and went to where the low caste lived. Learning and searching for a way to change Cybertron, Soundwave was in Kaon and met Megatron in a non-lethal gladiatorial battle. Seeing promise in him, Soundwave and his Minicon allies began to support him. Lazerbeak. Minicons had a bad reputation before the war. Many looked at them and associated them with spying and treachery. Lazerbeak, Ravage, Rumble, and Frenzy had likely been spies all their lives because the caste system saw spying as a good job for little bots. The unfortunate idea was that Minicons served the larger bots, and others were simple workers. However, Soundwave finds value in them and was aligned with hundreds of them, although only a few permanently stayed on him. All in the spy business together, Lazerbeak was likely doing surveillance of him for a long time. Ultra Magnus. Ultra Magnus was first a Wrecker, and it may surprise you to hear that the Wreckers were not a group created during the war. The Wreckers go way back into the early days of Cybertronian development. Before the great cities were built, there were tiny kingdoms and villages. Criminal bands attacked the weak, and the villaging group called the Wreckers rose to protect the weak. Sentinel talked him into leaving it and becoming an intelligence officer. Ultra Magnus had many roles, summed up as a military officer, guard, and police officer until the start of the war. His last known title was a Council Guardian, and at some point he was also an elite guard. His life was all about battle and protection. Shockwave. Shockwave had always lived on the edge of Cybertronian society, never hired by or belonging to any group. He originally did not trust Sentinel's Council, the first government of Cybertron who the Quintessons had put into power. Shockwave did not trust the aliens and was one of the first rebels. With his genius, he translated the Quintesson language. Soundwave stole this information from him, and it was key to discovering that the Quintessons were enslaving them. Shockwave was not a wanted criminal, but Alpha Trion said that he lived outside the law. Likely, the council allowed him to work as he pleased because occasionally revolutionary science would be produced by him. For example, he helped other scientists create the beautiful structure of Crystal City. Soundwave seemed to gain a dark curiosity, and so he migrated to Kaon to begin doing combiner experiments on the gladiators. There, he met Megatron and Soundwave. Bulkhead. Like Ultra Magnus, Bulkhead was first part of the hero band of the Wreckers. However, after the Quintesson invasion and as society developed, it seemed that the Wreckers weren't needed now that a proper police force had been established. Bulkhead likely moved into construction since Transformers Prime reveals that he had once worked in it. Starscream. Air Commander Starscream had a lot of power, resulting in his ego and belief that he deserves to be in charge. Starscream was in command of us and had 6 lieutenants to himself, and he was also close to Sentinel Prime. You may be surprised to hear that Starscream was not a coward but a fighter who could serve as a bodyguard for Sentinel when asked to. Because of the caste system, his flyer status has kept him in the aerial military, the Seekers, his whole life. Thousands were under his command, and his decision to side with Megatron rewarded the Decepticons with nearly all members of Cybertron's Air Force. Wheeljack. Wheeljack has known Bulkhead for a long time and fought with him in the original Band of Wreckers. After that, it is not confirmed what he was doing during the Age of Rust. However, Wheeljack knows transportation very well, patching up his own ship with ease and modifying Ultra Magnuses. At some point, he acquired this education, although it may have happened during the war itself. Wheeljack also knows how to craft his own explosives and how others work. Technology is his strong suit. Knockouts. Knockout's origins are not expressed in Transformers Prime, and some fans are wondering if he originates from Velocitron. Although Knockout may love his racing, he does not have the Velocitron obsession of race to forget we will die mentality in the line continuity. The planet of Velocitron is visited in the novel Exiles, and they are weird looking bots with long torsos and limbs. Knockout chooses style over speed, and Transformers Prime Knockout, not IDW Knockout, which is different, has the evidence of being Cybertronian. Knockout radiates calm arrogance like a higher caste bot who has not suffered or had reason to hate. Knockout is not the best fighter, and he enjoys joking and playing around in battles. Racing, watching movies, fixing himself up, and you know he is used to a life of pleasure. He downplays his skills, saying that he is better at breaking than fixing, but Knockout has a firm education in health. Knockout knows all the tools and machines, can reconnect limbs, do organ transplants, run the cortical psychic patch, and heal outer and internal damage. His hands are steady and skilled for the fine work, and he has the cockiness of a real surgeon. I say this because my sister is a doctor and she insists that surgeons are a stereotype of self-centered hotshots. And remember too that Knockout is never shown to struggle doing any medical task like Ratchet. Arcee. What we get about Arcee's past is limited to her trauma in the war. She was a scout, her partner got killed, but hey, what did she do before the war? Unfortunately, I could not find her in the books. Our judgment now lies solely on her personality. I mean, everyone else created before the war mentions their past or shows their skills, but Arcee does no more than fight. She has a strict attitude for rules and getting the job done, although she considers Ultra Magnus too strict. Arcee has a cop-like personality of being hard to get to know. She doesn't want to open up unless she knows who you are and what your intentions are, but it's her PTSD that makes her not want to get close to those she likes. Arcee can be cracked open and softened up, but her potty mouth, cop humor with kicking bad guys' butt, and hardness and duty makes me certain she led a tough life before the war. There is no way she was working retail or working in a library. When I look at her, I see her slapping cuffs on wrists. Actually, I just realized she reminds me of a bitter Judy Hopps. Breakdown. Contrary to fan belief, it is not written that Breakdown used to be a wrecker. His past before the war is mystery, although during it he started a rivalry with Breakdown. And at some point, he befriended Knockout and became his assistant. He does not display any particular knowledge in the show, and he generally is just seen fighting and destroying things. But he has a genuine respect for Megatron, whereas Knockout does not. This leads me to believe he had the standard backstory of most Decepticons. He was a low-caste worker who labored for the benefit of the upper castes. He doesn't have Megatron's grit or sharp aggression, and he used to be a shy bot. Because of that, I'm sure he was not a gladiator of the pits, just a factory worker or miner of some sort. Ratchet. Ratchet is as old as Optimus, but he has lived an arduous life, and that has taken a toll on his body. In his youth, Ratchet left his village and walked to the capital of Icon, a developing place of higher education. Yes, walked, because back in the day, no one knew how to transform. Ratchet saw and learned many great things, and in Iacon, he applied to be a student in medical sciences. He was taught by Remedy, and he was a junior medic at the time of the Quintesson invasion. Responsibility was daunting for the student, but over time, he became experienced. He made a good field medic when the war started. Dreadwing and Skyquake. As jet flyers, there's no doubt about it. These two are seekers through and through. Dreadwing is a confirmed seeker captain, and I doubt Skyquake deserved a lesser position. The two are strong fighters and very military, and neither of them likes Starscream, who would have outranked them before the war. In fact, the war is a perfect opportunity to step on him now that he didn't have political power to protect him anymore. Cliffjumper. His backstory isn't expanded upon in the books either, but we know his personality very well despite just the 2 episodes he appeared in. He was certainly not a lower caste bot, and his lackadaisical, jesting attitude suggests he lived a good life before the war. He loves to make jokes, always wanting to laugh and make others laugh with him. Cybertron is confirmed to have comedians as a cast since one chapter in Exodus described the stand-up comedian in the Alta Hex Casino. I can totally see Cliffjumper thriving in a place like that. Makeshift. Makeshift is only mentioned to have once been a gladiator in the pits. He's an important character in the novel Exiles before he's wasted in Transformers Prime. His abilities are incredibly useful, but it seems that the High Council might not know of them and that he used them for his own gain. Who could keep track of this bot who slipped into whatever role he pleased? Of course, one cannot simply stroll into a university and get a high caste job in the caste system. Makeshift is stuck in the low caste ranks, but he thrives in Kaon. I imagine that he got into all sorts of illegal business, selling products for gain and using disguises to protect himself. At some point, he entered the fight pits for kicks. Bumblebee and Smokescreen. I had to save these 2 because they were not created before the war. Both are the youngest Cybertronians, part of the last generation of the Allspark. However, Bumblebee is mentally more mature because he spent time in the action, whereas Smokescreen had been cooped up guarding Alpha Trion. Neither of them have known Cybertron before then. Arachnid. There is no information on her backstory, but Arachnid uses her natural powers for her own gain, and she shows remarkable cruelty. At one point, she collected the heads of alien species for her own pleasure. Because of this, I'm going to throw a random guess. It was mentioned in Exodus that bots sold body parts in the south because the slaves and gladiators were constantly getting damaged. I can imagine Arachnid webbing bots to capture them, stringing them up, and harvesting their parts to sell. She probably experienced more pleasure disemboweling her webbed victims than getting profit. Tailgate. Are you kidding me? This guy said like 1 line in the show and did not appear in the books. Fine, I'll make something up. He worked at an amusement park in 6 lasers over Cybertron, one of the people who tell you to get into what seat on the roller coaster. Hardshell, Bombshock, all Insecticons. Insecticons were not a part of society before the war. Instead, they lived like animals in the tunnels near the core, feeding off raw energon. Seaspray. Seaspray was likely one of the original wreckers of old times. However, in the caste system, he probably acquired a job among liquids, possibly dealing with naturally occurring pits of oil or energon on Cybertron. I have no idea. Vehicons and modern Predacons, they were all made during the war and had no job before then. I think that was all the Cybertronians mentioned or appearing in Transformers Prime. There are more characters in the lore, but I can only make this video so long. Another time, I will describe the eras of Cybertronian history and who might have been created when.